Howdy again, gang. Dr. Big Ed, your guitar pedal shrink. So I try to make these videos when I'm inspired to talk about things that I'm experiencing every day, since I'm a full-time musician and deal with this stuff all the time. So this week, I want to talk about pedal board order with your pedals and experimentation. But before we get to that, I want to make a point about giving pedals a chance. And what I mean is we've all bought pedals, tried them, I don't know, an hour, a day, a week, and been like, yeah, no, this isn't working for me. And you know, because pedals can be expensive, we sell it. And then we buy it again. And then we try it again. Now, not everything you buy and try, even more than once, works. But from my experience, my impatience, if you will, has cost me some money. And I don't want it to cost you some money. That's part of the purpose of these sessions that we're doing. So, to wit, this week I bought a pedal for the third time. Maybe it was a week ago. And the reason is that I was listening to an old recording I did, and I was like, wow, man, that sounded really good. What pedal board did I use? Because I'm always changing the pedal board like all of us. It's hard to settle on one thing. And for that reason, I think I've got two main ones. I've actually got down to two. Used to be 4 or 5. So I got down to 2. But what was that pedal board I used? So fortunately, I take a picture of everything I do and looked it up. And I went, oh, okay, right. I had this and that and this. And, like half of the board I didn't have anymore. So I got one thing that worked out great. I was like, yeah, that's really cool. I don't know why I stopped using that, but another thing I'd gotten rid of, and I said, okay, let me buy it. So bought it again last week. It came in. It came in this box. You know what the key thing about this box is? It's got my handwriting on it. It was so not only did I buy a pedal for the third time, but it was a pedal that was mine. Because I wrote on the box so that when I put it in the closet, because these King of Gear mini glitches come in a plain box. So when I put it up in the closet, I knew what pedal the box was for. Just dumb. So give pedals a chance. I know it's important because you've spent good money on them and you want to get your money back. But rather than spending a couple hours or even a week, and this is going to lead into our next thing, is our next point of the session is give them a chance, try them in different orders, try them in different places. And I'm glad I take pictures of my pedal boards, so I can refer back to things when I go, oh, wow. And this is the second time in my life where I've heard a recording that I did and went, oh my God, like that was awesome. What was I doing? Sometimes you do that and it just doesn't work where you are right now, but just give things a chance. Don't be so eager or like frustrated that you have to okay. Just my first bit of advice for the day. My second bit of advice is this. You'd be surprised sometimes, I'm sure you've all been through this, but you'll be surprised sometimes what order things sound good in. For instance, I got a message from a friend of mine, and he was like, oh my God, like that collected abstractions thing you did, how did you get that exploding sound? Like what distortion, what fuzz did you use? There was no fuzz or distortion. There was an overdrive, but what I did was I had the Death by Audio reverberation machine, which has distortion in it, but I ran it fully wet into the drum, the Pladosk Electrisk drum. And the drum had the texture knob up, so that had some grit to it. But then I ran it into a very, very low gain overdrive that's set to be pretty much for clarity. So it's not really driving it too bad. It's just to give my lap steel some clarity. And it was the three of those things that was the exploding sound that they were talking about. So the first thing I want to talk about is, and I know some of you do this, so forgive me if you've done this, but try reverb earlier in your chain, because, and I have 2 to 3 reverbs often on my board. I've always got one at the end that's the space, right? That's the kind of the height and the depth and the width kind of vibe. And sometimes that's for texture as well. But I often have one at the beginning of my chain. It's usually the first or second, sometimes after compression, that I run. And then I run the reverb into my dirt, overdrive, boost, whatever I'm using. Because the reverb hitting that overdrive, even if it's not a heavy overdrive, because I'm pretty much using low to mid gain, never more than mid, but between low and mid. That has the most insane textural sound, shoegazy, whatever. But they sometimes do it at the end of the chain with a dirt after it. The way it responds early in the chain into the dirt and then into other effects, amazing. Another thing I would suggest is trying a gated reverb first. So a textural reverb first is awesome into dirt as well. But a gated reverb with the gate, the threshold and the length set a certain way, unbelievable. Especially if you're using a volume pedal after that, because if you use like a really big textural reverb early, I use like the Dr. Scientist Atmosphere. And there's one setting on there called React that the harder you play, the more it blooms and whatnot. And then the softer you play, you get more reverb technically. But the problem is when I use my volume pedal, it's cutting a lot of that off. If you use a gated reverb, it's passing through and shutting off before you close your volume pedal. Really cool. And a gated reverb into dirt, it's almost glitchy. It's got its own thing. So try reverb first. And as far as other effects, I personally, I'm not doing it right now, but I personally like my compressor after my dirt. Because I'm not using very high gain, I don't get a lot of noise that way. But if you have a super quiet compressor, you won't get too much noise anyway. But if you try your compressor after your dirt, you're not compressing your dirt. And you'll have a little bit more clarity. It'll sound less bloomy. Now that bloomy sound is really cool. Right now I've got the compressor before my dirt and I'm getting that bloomy sound because the compressor is kind of compressing and pushing the dirt. And that's a cool sound. But if you want some more clarity and more openness and to really hear the dirt, put your compressor afterwards. Also, basically, what I want you to try is putting things in orders that you don't expect, right? Like I have a really, really good friend of mine, 45 years in the business, played with everybody, was in a band that's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now. Trust him. He knows his stuff. He always puts delay before dirt. And it sounds fantastic. It really does. And he just likes it. I said to him once, why do you do that? And then I tried it and I was like, holy Christmas, this is really, really cool. You don't want to do it all the time maybe, but try it because it's got a thing. It kind of gives it that lo-fi textural thing. But it's also like putting it through a preamp in a way, which is useful. So try different combinations, right? You might want a glitch pedal up front. You might want it at the end for textural things. You might want, you might want your modulation after your reverb. Because I've been shocked, for years I was using modulation before reverb. But then I started putting it after the reverb and went, oh, wow, that's a really cool thing, And then now with all these blender devices, and I've got the Klein bottle, and the EHX makes one, and now Old Blood Noise. That's another cool thing to try, is running them in parallel, because if it's getting a little cloudy, and I know it takes up more pedal board space, but if things are getting a little too cloudy, try running them in parallel. It really is a cool thing. I've done it a lot. So that's the simple lesson for this week, is just don't get frustrated. And I know it takes time to try different combinations, and it's a pain in the butt because you're moving things and pushing them around, and oh, that didn't work. And then I do this every day. For instance, I tried a reverb. I was trying to replace the Dr. Scientist because I was like, well, I really like that React, to Bloom, so maybe that should go at the end. And I took the reverb that was at the end and put it in the beginning. It didn't work. But you know what? It took 5 minutes to find that out. And I don't get frustrated about these things anymore because they're all explorations and experimentation. And I don't know, I get a sense of satisfaction that okay, now I know and I'm good. And then there's also something to be said for just being happy with what you're getting. You know better than anybody if you've got your sound. Another friend of mine on Instagram, I know he's a subscriber to this channel. Hopefully he sees this. He said, Ed, hey, can you check out this track and this video I made for this track? I can't, I'm not sure if I've got it finished, and I keep redoing it and whatever. Maybe I got to do something. It was awesome. There was nothing wrong. I told him, I said, it is perfect. Put it out. So there comes a point where you got to stop and maybe ask advice from other people as well, because that's real. I do it all the time. I walk away. I'll do things when I'm frustrated, and I walk away and go take a hike in the park. And, we've got this beautiful hilly forest. Or go play basketball or something, just something else. Walk away. But if you know your sound, if you're happy with it, stick with it. If you're not, experiment. Try things, move them around. You might be surprised putting things in the not recommended internet order will change things for you. All right? You dig? Cool. Peace. Until next time.